A little bit of stress is good, a lot is not. If you stay in cold water for too long, you get hypothermia and die. So a little bit of it is good, a lot of it is not. Similarly with heat, a little bit of heat is good. Up to 20 minutes in a sauna, up to 20 minutes in a hot bath can actually be fantastic for you. Anything beyond that, you get the risk of hyperthermia. And once again, you die. So we have to be careful with all of these. Exercise is the same. A little bit of exercise is good, a lot is not.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I have a very special guest that has trained and worked with Canadian Olympians, people performing at their very best, to talk about individual and organizational peak performance. Now, before we dive into the content today, let me just welcome you into the podcast. For those of you who are just joining us, if you are new to my world, welcome in. This podcast is really where I'm able to question and decipher from the world's leading minds in health, nutrition, peak performance, longevity, to give you guys the tools to how to elevate into our Thrive state, the state of optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And for all you newcomers, if you are new to this world and you want a lot of free longevity and performance resources, go to thrivestatestarter.com. In there, I'm going to give you a bundle of free breathwork exercises to bring you into states of calm and energy so you can really tackle your day. You're also going to get excerpts of my book, as well as a free ebook on how to thrive to 105. That and so much more when you go to thrivestatestarter.com. And if you're returning to the podcast, thank you so much. It is your loyalty, it is your listenership and your engagement that has allowed this podcast to grow. And if this has given you any value, please do us a favor, help it grow by subscribing to the podcast, commenting, sharing it with your friends and family. That's going to help us out so much. And please consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. That is going to allow me to continue to bring on great guests to bring more information to you. As a very special treat to all the loyal listeners, if you like any of this content, you want to dive deeper and access our digital library, we've got a mental health academy in the library where we interview people like Vishen Lakhiani, Dave Asprey, Bruce Lipton, Mariel Hemingway, Jim Quick on how to master mental and emotional resilience. We've got the Thrive State Activator, which is a course that teaches you how to use breath, movement, and tons of other techniques to tap you into resourceful, energetic states so that you can crush your day. And then the Thrive State Accelerator, which is a 10-week course that breaks down the habits and how to install habits in your sleep, nutrition, movement, your thoughts, your mindset, your relationships, your sense of purpose. It's a whole system for you to build a lifestyle of optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. You can access all of this stuff as a listener and receive 50% off by using the code ThriveState50. And on to today's guest. He is a fellow pioneer in the realm of human and organizational performance. He's actually a world-leading physiologist, a keynote speaker, and best-selling author, and served as an associate professor at the University of Toronto and a senior scientist at the Hospital for Sick Children. He's the author of not just one, not just two, but 5 best-selling books, including Superbody, The Ripple Effect, The Focus Effect, Rest, Focus, Recharge, and Powerhouse. As a TV analyst, Dr. Wells hosted the award-winning Superbody series, which actually aired on Olympic television broadcasts worldwide back in 2010 and 2012. He is currently the founder and CEO of Wells Performance, a global consulting firm committed to achieving the moonshot of helping teams, schools, and businesses become places where people get healthy, perform optimally, and ultimately reach their potential. This is a guy, he's like a brother in arms doing the work. He has spoken to audiences all over the world, including TEDx, Mastermind Talks, and the Titan Summit. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to receive so much value. He gives so much practical tips in today's conversation. And please enjoy this podcast with myself and Dr. Greg Wells. Dr. Greg Wells, welcome to the Thrive State Podcast.
It is so good to be here. Thank you so much. I'm so psyched to connect and get to know you a little bit better and have a convo. So this is going to be awesome. Super, super thrilled.
It is great to find somebody else that's out there that's performance based and you come from a completely different background. Now, before we dive into that though, Dr. Wells, my audience is very familiar with a part of the show called the 5 to Thrive. 5 quick questions pulled out of my rectum to find out a little bit more of who you are. 1,000 points each. We're definitely meeting in Toronto in September. So if you win a healthy meal on me. So the next question is, Dr. Wells, are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive?
Let's do it. But I'm hosting you in Toronto in September. So dinner's on me regardless of the outcome.
Oh, wow.
I'm coming to LA.
We're going to be
you take me out in LA and I'll take you out in Toronto. And that's the win for both of us. But let's do this.
Question number 1. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Probably a firefighter. There was a journalist component to it as well at one point. Wanted to be an Olympic swimmer, but had nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. So that's the funny thing. It's whatever I wanted to be had nothing to do with where I actually landed.
1,000 points there. Question number 2. What one quote, phrase, movie, book that entered your life in your earlier years that just made you go, wow, I didn't know this? What was a big aha moment that you got either from a book, a quote, a movie?
You know, I was a huge Star Wars fan growing up. And so all of my, that was like the focus of my first little while. But the book that had the biggest impact on me was The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And the reason why I think that had such a huge impact on me was that in that book, Dan, the author, is a gymnast, injures himself very badly in a motorcycle accident, and then rehabs himself through extraordinary amounts of work on every aspect of who he was. And my uncle gave me that book when I was 15 years old, right after I broke my neck. So I had a surfing accident in Florida and broke my neck, my C-spine in a few different locations. And obviously I was trying to come back after neurosurgery and rehab and all sorts of other stuff. And that book really, really resonated with me, showing me that it's actually possible to come back to be an athlete again. Which I did through college. But that was the big one for sure. It's an incredible book.
Beautiful. 2,000 points. Question number 3 is, if there's a superpower that you could have, and it could be of any form, what would you choose to have a superpower in?
I would want a superpower in being able to see someone's physiology and be able to tweak it. Sort of like Electro has the ability to see electricity and use it. I want to be able to see someone's chemical pathways and tweak that so that I could cure cancer, or I could fix their heart, or I could help them feel better, or get them excited for a race. Like I would want to be able to see and just tweak someone's physiology with my brain. I think that would be super cool.
That's really neat. I have a friend that actually has an app that allows you to kind of do something like that. I'll introduce you after this. 3,000 points. Question number 4 is, if I gave you a mic and put you on stage with 50,000 people and asked you to sing a karaoke song, which song would that be?
Oh my God, that's crazy. The only stuff that I know off by heart is like Led Zeppelin and those, but that's not what everyone's going to want to hear. So I would have to actually grab something out of my brain from Taylor Swift, because I'm listening to a lot of that right now, because I've got a 13-year-old girl, and every time that we drive anywhere, those songs are playing. So I'm going to go with maybe Karma from Taylor Swift, only because I know that the Zeppelin would get no audience reaction these days. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Well, she's going to be in Vancouver in December, and my 10-year-old is going there as well. So you guys might want to meet up.
Right on.
Last question for you is, outside of your family, outside of your children, what are you most proud of?
Wow. Probably I would say having overcome a number of pretty crazy obstacles and helped people as a result. So I had a viral heart infection in 2012, got viral myocarditis, hospitalized. But that, because I was commentating the Olympics in Canada at the time, that story of Greg coming back from viral myocarditis ended up getting a fair bit of media traction. And ended up doing an Ironman a year later. And that whole recovery process I shared it very, very transparently. And I know that that had an impact for a lot of people who were struggling as well and saw some of the things that I was doing and, the getting up early in the morning and training and those sorts of things. So ultimately, probably because I think it helped people at scale, which was kind of neat. So yeah, bad thing happened, but turned it into something that was okay and ended up helping a lot of people as a result. So I'll go with that one.
Whoa, 5,000 points. You win it, even though you're buying me dinner for winning. Thank you for playing. Let's dive into your work. I mean, I feel like I'm hanging out with a kindred spirit, a brother that's in this space. You speak on human and organizational performance and potential. And before we dive into each one of these things, because not only do I want people who are individuals to see how to tap into their best, but you know, how this actually works if they're leading teams and organizations. But before we get into that, how did you get into the space performance? What's a little bit of background of you and what got you interested in human potential?
So as I mentioned, when I was 15 years old, I was a competitive swimmer down training in Florida, playing with my buddies in the waves. Big wave picked me up, dropped me on the beach, broke my neck in a bunch of different places. Went through 3 months of traction and then neurosurgery and then rehab and ended up being able to swim again in college. I didn't get to the level that many of my friends did, making the Olympics, but sort of pretty good college swimmer. And that sparked my interest really in kinesiology. So I ended up doing a kinesiology undergrad, then a master's, then a PhD, and two postdocs afterwards. And I explored biomedical engineering and respiratory physiology and exercise physiology, and ultimately landed at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto doing exercise medicine for kids with leukemia and cystic fibrosis. So that was the medical health side that I discovered along the way. In parallel to that, though, I consulted for the Canadian Olympic team all the
Hmm.
way through that as a physiologist. So whatever we did in the lab at Sick Kids, I was usually doing with the athletes as well. So we would do VO2 max with the athletes, but we would just do a ramp test for someone with cystic fibrosis. And I saw that it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum of what humans are capable of, whether you're fighting cancer or whether you're trying to win a medal at the Olympics, the human body is the human body. The pathways are the pathways. You just have different levels of function. And that fascinated me because there's so much that we can do that is universal human truths to help people get better, like sleeping well or like eating the best that we possibly can or using exercise to improve pathways or elevating our mindset to improve our psychology. And that plays a role in everything that we do. And whether that's just trying to get healthy or you're trying to perform and win medals at the Olympics, it applies to all of us. And so that's the broad strokes. But I say I'm an extreme human physiologist, but I work out at the extremes. But now I'm trying to bring all of that from high performance sports and from medical into some ideas that we can all install in our lives to make all of our lives better. Now, that's what I'm trying to do.
Now, before I dive into your latest book, what do you think the state is in terms of our potential? Do you feel like modern times and how we're living in the US and Canada and globally that we are actually doing things that are hindering our potential? And what might some of those big hinders be?
I have massive faith in human potential. I think that we as a species have not even come remotely close to what we're capable of. Even just think about how far we've come in the last 100 years, right? We could never imagine how well we are right now. And I don't want to ignore the people that are struggling. There's lots going on that could be better, and we've got a long way to go. I don't think we're anywhere close to our potential as humans. I know that we could be infinitely healthier. I know that we could shift from a disease treatment model as a society to a health promotion or prevention model. Imagine if we had parks and exercise incorporated in schools and we taught people meditation and we made it easy to eat healthy foods rather than processed foods. And there's just so much that we could potentially be doing as a society to elevate our health, to improve our well-being, and to enable everyone to reach their true human potential. So I think there's a lot we can do. I also think that each one of us has the potential to do incredible things as well. Right? And we're sitting here talking, and I've got a liter of water that I'm going to, put back in dinner tonight is really, really focused on anti-inflammatory nutrition. So like we as a family are doing our very best to do things for our kids and for Judith and I But I also think that there's some society things that we need to tackle as well to unlock our human potential. But I don't think we're anywhere close. Like in 100 years from now, again, if we were to look back upon now, my gosh, I think that there's so far for us to get to, and very, very hopeful. I'm excited. I'm happy that we have the knowledge, we have the science, we have the practices. We just need to get them incorporated into our lives at scale, and then I think some incredible things could occur.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I am a warrior fighting the same war as you. And I do believe that as we start to wake up to the conscious choices that we make in our life, we can really start to build this new version of us. And as we become better, we're almost like individual cells all waking up at the same time, in the organism that is humanity, which who do we become once we get there? So building on that backdrop there, your latest book is Powerhouse: Protect Your Energy, Optimize Your Health, and Supercharge Your Performance. What should people know? How do they start to become a powerhouse? What are some of the pillars that the people should take into account?
So I noticed that people were really tired following the pandemic. There's this broad level burnout. And whenever I was talking to companies, the major issue was energy. People are fatigued, we're overwhelmed with everything that's going on. And so when I looked at that as a physiologist, I asked myself, all right, so what does everybody need right now? Well, we need more energy, personal, individual energy from inside of ourselves. Like we need more mental energy, we need more physical energy to overcome these challenges that we're faced with, operate at the highest level that we can, perform to our potential, get healthy. And so what do we need? We need energy. Fair enough. Where does energy come from? Inside of our bodies. It's mitochondria. These are these little tiny structures inside all of our cells, except red blood cells. Pretty much every other cell in the body has mitochondria in it. Mitochondria take the food that you eat, break it down, and then turn that into energy that we use to think, that we use to move, that we use to digest our food. Everything happens because of these mitochondria. When they are healthy, you have more energy. When they're not functioning very well, you actually get sick. They also control whether or not our cells break down and get taken away if they're not working. So it's called autophagy, and that's what keeps us healthy in the long term. We think that they might even be involved in regulating how long we live as humans, our longevity. So I wanted to focus on mitochondria. And then I thought about it and I did a ton of research and explored how do we get our mitochondria healthy. Well, the first pillar that I explored was breath work. That's very popular these days, and people are like, well, I can breathe automatically. But if you actually deliberately change the way that you breathe, you can increase the amount of oxygen that gets into your cells. You can decrease your stress levels. You can blow off carbon dioxide. You can calm your body down. You can increase your body's activity and increase the body temperature. So there's many different ways of manipulating your physiology by using your breath. Great example is just that long, slow exhale, right? That birthday candle breath. Instantly, when you do that, you feel calmer. Special forces soldiers, first responders, doctors in the emergency room learn box breathing: 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold, to stay calm during very difficult circumstances. And so breath work is fascinating. I actually did my PhD on breath work. My whole thesis was on using breathing patterns to elevate performance in trained sports like swimming and canoe kayak. And that's all the work that I did with the Olympic team, was within trained sports, trying to link up breathing and performance to try to make us better. It's also a great thing to do right before you walk into a meeting. If anyone's got a white collar knowledge worker type job, you're walking into a meeting, you're nervous, take a few deep breaths before you cross the threshold into the room, calm yourself down, you will perform better. You'll see some of the greatest public speakers in the world settle themselves right before they address the audience using a breathwork technique, just those long, slow exhales to center yourself. Once you're oxygenated, once you have energy levels that are increasing, you can actually then deliberately increase your energy through healthy food, through a concept called hormesis, which is leveraging the power of stress as a good thing to challenge yourself while not overwhelming your stress and becoming burned out. That then leads to the opportunity of thriving in our lives, applying that energy to the things that we care about the most, being altruistic people who help others with no expectation of any return to ourselves, knowing that when we make the world a better place, when we serve other people, when we help elevate other people's lives, that inevitably that will come back to us as well. So those are just a few of the pillars, a few of the ideas, but it's a scientific foundation for living a world-class life based on optimizing the health of your mitochondria. That was the goal. That was what I wanted to share with people and write about.
Oh, thanks so much. Now, I'm not just because you told me you got your PhD in studying breath work, uh, I need to go deeper on this topic with you now.
Let's do it.
Just mention the box breathing, which is a great technique. And my audience, I've taught them 4-7-8 breathing, which is an inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, out for a count of 8. And just like you were mentioning, that long exhalation process really activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Are there any specific type of breathing patterns that you can share with us that, will that's, better for your mitochondria or bring you into these other more resourceful states of being that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. There's the thesis right there up on the shelf. If anyone's watching this on video, it's still sitting on my shelf. It's really incredible that we can activate different aspects of our nervous system using breath work. And the easiest way to feel that, just to get started, is contrasting either the long, slow exhale, right, and all of the relaxation and tension release that accompanies that. That's your parasympathetic nervous system activating. Contrast that with a sharp, fast exhale, right? Those explosive exhales, which you see athletes doing right before they're about to compete to increase their sympathetic nervous system activation. The extreme version of that is a tennis player screaming as they hit the ball, right? Like the hard, fast, explosive exhales make you more stressed, which can help you elevate your energy when you absolutely have to sprint, when you have to run, when you don't have enough energy. So we can manipulate our nervous system deliberately by changing our breathing pattern. The one that you mentioned, the 4, 7, and 8
Yeah, 4-7.
pattern is super cool because it develops some discipline around making sure that you take a complete inhale, holding it for 7 seconds and staying calm, exhaling slowly for 8 to allow all of that carbon dioxide that you've accumulated in your lungs in that 7 second hold, blowing all that out, and then revitalizing the gases in your lungs through that 4 second inhale. One of the practices that I've been thinking about and teaching a little bit is then also adding in a hold on exhale and becoming comfortable with having empty lungs and or you've exhaled completely and being able to just sit with that for a few seconds. As the carbon dioxide levels begin to rise, you feel and experience that sensation of breathlessness, which can cause you to feel a little bit uncomfortable psychologically. If you have any history of panic attacks, do not do this because it can actually trigger a panic attack. So do not do that. But it is a way for you to learn to sit with discomfort.
Mm.
Then you take that beautiful deep inhale and all that discomfort dissipates away. So it's also a mental practice. Can you stay focused on your breath for cycles of breathing? Can you stay in a state of psychological calm during that exhale component and the hold on exhale as well? And we have done things like 3-6-9 breathing patterns. The 4-7-8 is also fantastic. The 4-4-4-4 pattern is super cool for breath work. The other really cool thing that's interesting is exhaling against a slightly closed glottis. So you sort of contract your throat just a touch and you exhale against that resistance, which actually increases the pressure in your lungs. And it can, if you do it for a period of time, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes, increase your body temperature. And you can actually do it and start sweating because you can generate that much heat internally. Some people call it the breath of fire. So there's all sorts of very cool practices that you can develop and use and explore. And it's very cool because you can see your mind and body working together. You can get a sense of how your body is talking to your brain. Easiest way to do that is to just simply hold your breath for a while, and you will notice over time that the urge to breathe increases. That's your body sensing that carbon dioxide building up. It's like, you got to breathe. And you're like, no, I'm not going to breathe. So it's your mind fighting your body. Your body will win. Eventually you will take a breath, but it's interesting watching your mindset as you hold your breath, as that CO2 level rises. So I just love playing with the mind body connection through breath work and exploring different breathing patterns and seeing what effects that they have on the body. I also like stacking this because it's an amazing thing to do if you're in a sauna or a hot bath, or even just one cycle of breathing during a cold shower first thing in the morning. All of that stuff's amazing. So I know that's a lot, but I just thought I'd throw it all out there for your audience.
No, that was very delicious. It was well served in multiple different flavors. So thank you for that. And just to go over some of the physiology there, when we're holding our breath and are training ourselves in this way, our urge to breathe actually is coming from the level of peace of carbon dioxide that's actually in our blood. So when we hold our breath, the carbon dioxide level goes up, and actually that actually causes oxygen to be released from our red blood cells better. So we have better delivery of oxygen, but we're also training that resilience muscle. And you mentioned that a couple of these things where we're in a sauna or we're in, a cold environment. Talk to us a little bit about creating hormesis, how maybe the deliberate and conscious choice of allowing a little bit of stress in our body actually elevates who we can be as individuals.
Yeah, the third chapter of Powerhouse is all about energizing yourself. And the foundation of that chapter is the concept of hormesis, which is simply put that a little bit of stress is good for you and a lot of stress is not good for you. So let's use weightlifting as an example. If you lift some weights and you lift heavy enough weights that you feel sore the next day, you have caused some stress to your muscles. That stimulates a cascade of pathways inside the human body, the inflammatory pathway, actually, that then sparks healing, repair, and regeneration. That if you have healthy food, if you have protein, if you have vitamins and minerals and polyphenols and flavonoids from plants, that you then heal, repair, and regenerate those muscles, and they will heal, repair, and regenerate just slightly stronger than they were before. So that's how you build strength. Running is the same thing. Cardio is the same thing. You deplete your energy levels and then you build your energy levels up slightly higher than they were before. Your psychology is the same. If you work really, really hard throughout the course of the day, your neurons inside your brain are working. They become depleted of neurotransmitters. We then build those neurotransmitters back up, and you may have a little bit more of them in the future. That's how we build resilience. So this is a very common thing for us to experience. Now, we can deliberately impose a little bit of stress upon ourselves to spark positive adaptation. Two of the ways that are very popular right now to do that are exposing yourself to cold and exposing yourself to heat. Cold water immersion is kind of having its moment right now. I've been practicing pretty consistently since about 2016. We studied it at U of T in my lab, did a number of studies on track and field athletes using cold to try to recover faster. And there's some compelling evidence that cold water immersion seems to be beneficial, especially for mental health, because endorphins get released. Possibly some benefits for lowering inflammation if you are at the right water temperature, which is around about maybe 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but also then not going too cold, but then also not going for too long, 3 to 5 minutes max, right? A total of maybe 10 to 12 minutes per week of cold water exposure. So I do 4 times 3 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometime on the weekend. 3 minutes in cold, and I find that to be tremendously beneficial. Also for my brain, it's super good. Heat is another potential way of sparking positive adaptation. That seems to create heat shock proteins, which are fantastic for our cardiovascular system. So we're now, simply put, you can use cold to help your brain, your spinal cord, and your nervous system and inflammation. And then heat seems to spark your cardiovascular system to get better through heat shock proteins. It's possible that cold releases heat shock proteins as well. So by alternating cold and heat, I often recommend people do cold water immersion in the morning, take a hot bath or a sauna at night. That seems to work as a bookend for your day. That seems to be a way of us using hormesis to get better. A little bit of stress is good, a lot is not. If you stay in cold water for too long, you get hypothermia and die. So a little bit of it is good, a lot of it is not. Similarly with heat, a little bit of heat is good, up to 20 minutes in a sauna, up to 20 minutes in a hot bath can actually be fantastic for you. Anything beyond that, you get the risk of hyperthermia. And once again, you die. So we have to be careful with all of these. Exercise is the same. A little bit of exercise is good. A lot is not. Salt, a little bit is good. A lot is not. So it just over and over and over, we see this pathway. And once you understand hormesis, it helps you to cut through a lot of the nonsense that you see online around whatever practices or quote unquote biohacks that people are using to try to get follower counts. But anyway, so I won't get into that too much, but heat and cold are two very powerful tools that we can use in moderation, leveraging hormesis to get healthier mentally and physically.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You could find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed, and please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
That's a great point. And just to add on to that, recovery, because really it's that element of recovery that we achieve the growth and the transformation from that stress. And I think for many of us, we have to understand that this adaptive capacity, we have to look in totality of our lives. What choices are we making in sleep, nutrition, movement, our thoughts, our emotions, the people that we have around, our sense of purpose, all these things. We could be making choices that actually elevate our state, or we could make choices that are stressful to our body. And if we're making choices that are stressful to our body, sometimes our ability to take on the extra stress of fasting or a cold or hot just isn't very good, because hormesis is tiny stress recovery, and then we get the benefits. So can you speak to, really maybe monitoring how we live our lives? That hormesis is great, but we have to get the fundamentals down first. And otherwise, we're probably overstressing our bodies. Yeah.
We're living in a time where stress is normal, busyness is valued, and we've lost our ability to give ourselves permission to recover and regenerate. And unless you have that time to rest, recover, and regenerate, you end up on a path towards overwhelm and burnout.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with stress in and of itself. It's a challenge that makes us better if we alternate stress with rest. That leads to positive adaptation, because when we are stressed, chemicals get released into your body that, if you follow that stress with rest, spark growth of your muscles, strengthening of your bones, improvement of your nervous system, breaking down old cells and getting rid of them so that they don't cause problems. There's all sorts of benefits that happen when we leverage stress plus rest equals growth. I think Steve Magnuson wrote that in one of his books. I think it's called Peak Performance, that you might want to look up. That was the primary hypothesis behind that book, which he describes very, very well. And so giving ourselves permission to rest, to recover, to regenerate, is so important in this time. And it might feel like you're wasting time, but the reality is that's what world-class performers do. If you look at the best in every single discipline, they're not performing at a world-class level all the time. They're alternating periods of training, preparation, practice, and then performance. The higher you go in golf, for example, the fewer major tournaments that you play. You only peak a few times a year. Similarly, in music, on your way up, you need to get repetitions. But once you're in the high level symphony, you only perform at a lower rate than you would on your way up in getting those repetitions. So, as high performers, as people who want to do well, as people who want to be healthy, one of the core practices is building in that rest, recovery, regeneration. Do the meditation, get the massage, spend some time with people who elevate you, build up your community around yourself of people who challenge you to become better, eat the healthy food, take the vacation, please take the vacation, right? All of these core practices that enable us to be better long term. And yeah, you might lose in the short term in minutes, but you will gain exponentially in the weeks, months, and years following. So yeah, rest, recovery, regeneration is a core practice for high performers who want to get healthy and improve their well-being.
Really, really great tips. I mean, this is definitely how individuals achieve their full potential. But I know you speak to a lot of teams, you've consulted with Olympians, you speak to a lot of organizations. How do we start looking now at our organizational potential? How do we start looking at how we get a collective of people to perform better? What's your take?
My take on that really revolves around understanding that the way that we're working isn't working. We have 25% of our population diagnosed sleeping disorder, 50 to 60% of our population in North America with overweight or obesity. 85% of us are not getting enough physical activity to prevent a chronic disease. 1 in 4 people are struggling with depression or anxiety. The way we're working isn't working. We need a new path forwards. And the path forwards that I am suggesting is the best way for us to move forwards, personally and professionally, and for the organization, is to build up health and high performance at the same time. By being healthier, we will perform better. Organizations that support employee health and well-being, not just in terms of get your blood pressure testing or download the meditation app, but truly committing to helping people reach their true human potential, their ability to perform at the highest level by facilitating practices that improve our health and well-being, ensuring that there's healthy food at work, encouraging people to train like athletes physically so that they can perform like corporate athletes in the organization. This is the path forwards. We don't want to be simply treating people when they become sick and burned out, when they develop that chronic disease after being stressed for 35 years at the office. We want to develop the capacity for people to function at the highest level, reach their potential. And I actually believe that health and well-being is a core part of that, and that organizations that truly commit to elevating the health and well-being of their teams, of their people, are the ones who are going to win, because the end result of that is sustainable high performance, not simply, you know, burn the midnight oil, pull the all-nighter, deliver the presentation, and then do it all over again, fueling yourself with caffeine, sugar, and alcohol, which is unfortunately what so many people have done up until this point. But imagine a completely different place where we're meditating to prepare, we're exercising to spark the brain, we're fueling our bodies and minds throughout the course of the day with world-class food, we're doing our absolute best in whatever it is that we care about the most, whatever our true human potential, our unique ability is, and then delivering and shipping the product or the performance or the presentation or the meeting, whatever that happens to be, giving yourself time to recharge. Then you might actually be able to do it again at a world-class level consistently. One path leads to overwhelm and burnout. The other one leads to healthy high performance that's sustainable long-term. And that's the path I want people on.
That's beautiful that you shared that. And I don't want people who aren't leading organizations to tune out. I want people to dial in and listen, because even if you're not a part of a big organization, you are probably in communities of your families, in communities of your interests and hobbies. And developing this thing is how your community elevates, how your family will elevate. So let me ask you, I mean, I know of some organizations that just probably give you a credit to go to the gym or maybe buy an app for all their employees. How are the real high performing organizations really allowing this culture of health and performance? How are they implementing and integrating it rather than just filling off a checkbox of organizational wellness?
The organizations that are really committed to doing this integrate it into the day-to-day life and environment. So one of the consulting companies that I have had the opportunity to work with for a very long time recently installed nap pods facing the windows on the third floor of their building that looks out over the water here in the city where I'm at right now. That's incredible. And then anyone can go down, jump into the nap pod, take a 5-10 minute power nap, come back out and reset. Off you go. And there's water there and coffee for afterwards, those sorts of things. Another organization I was with just did a huge initiative in New York, actually. Another financial institution in New York just did a huge initiative around helping their 3,000 employees improve their sleep and understanding that there's going to be some rules around when you can communicate after hours. And after 9 p.m., there will be no more communications going through the server. They will be saved until the next morning to go out unless it's an emergency, and there's rules for that as well. So they're facilitating people to get good rest. Of course, incorporating great food into the environment is key. I've worked with a number of school boards that are trying to figure out how do we get healthier food into the schools so that students can learn better. Just as much as this applies to organizations, this also applies to our schools. And food and healthy nutrition is so important to the way that our brain works, to facilitate learning, to facilitate creativity, to facilitate focus and concentration. And then I think maybe the biggest Achilles heel that we all need to be aware of, and that all organizations, I would even submit that most families are probably struggling with this as well, is our healthy use of technology and trying to find a way to use technology intentionally that elevates our lives rather than compulsively and addictively, which a lot of the apps and technologies that we're using are doing, because they want you on the platform. They want to leverage the dopamine hits to keep you doom scrolling through the feed. And so while we're making great strides in some areas with people recognizing that doing these practices that elevate health and well-being, facilitating the environment to make health and well-being inevitable, elevates our performance, improves the bottom line in our companies, improves performance academically in the schools. We are all struggling now to learn how to use some of these new technologies that we have access to in a way that doesn't damage our health, but elevates our lives and improves our performance. This is only going to accelerate with VR and AI and other things that are coming through. And there's definitely a way of doing this right, and clearly some ways to do it that are not working. So that's a few things that are working, and then a couple of big challenges that we're going to have to overcome moving forwards, I think.
You share a couple of those things that actually are working, because I certainly know, people out there who are conscious that they are addicted to this thing, and they've heard use the timers, but they'll just turn the timers on again and they'll figure out a way back to these things. What are some practical things that could actually allow us to have better control over the technology?
Got it. Well, let's just talk directly to you and the audience, and I'll say this is what I think we should all be doing. First and foremost, on all of your devices, all notifications are off at all times. You decide where your attention goes when you want it to go there, not when the algorithm wants it to go there. So that's practice number one. All notifications off on all of your devices at all times. The only people that can reach me instantly are Judith, my wife, and Ingrid, my daughter. Adam's too young, doesn't have a phone yet. And yeah, that's one thing. Secondly, if you notice that you are struggling with being on apps that are, let's call it social media apps, too often, you need to delete them off your device. I have deleted all of the social media apps off all of my devices. I only use a desktop platform to publish content. I'm trying not to consume any content on my mobile device because it's addictive. I teach this stuff, and if it's on my mobile, I look at it. I can't help it. I'm not strong enough. My neurophysiology isn't good enough to overcome the billions of dollars of investment that has been made into figuring out how to get me to constantly check whether or not I have any new messages on whatever the platform is that I'm publishing on. I also think that I'm committed to sharing positivity online. So If there's any negativity that arrives at your eyeballs from any of these platforms, that's a really good indication that that's one of the things that needs to get eliminated. So I have a strict rule around negativity on social or on even some of my contacts, to be honest. And that strict rule is delete the comment, block the person. I do not allow any negativity into my brain from any social media platform whatsoever. So that's another core practice for us. And then I guess the final one that I would submit to everyone is probably the single most powerful thing that you can do is to defend your last hour. If the last hour before you're falling asleep at night can be tech free, you will win. You will sleep so much better. Your health and happiness will be so much better. Your relationships with the people that you love will improve. It is one of the most important things that we need to do right now is not to be doom scrolling through social on our devices late at night. I think that is a very easy win for everyone. Although I know that in practice, it's difficult to put down away the phone and to pick up the book.
Mm, so good. And so practical. I'm going to end with this question here because we're talking about human potential. We've talked about resilience and building resilience. What do you say to an individual and organization where they have marked their performance as maybe on the organization sides, profits, and maybe on the individual side, achieving milestones in the income that they're making? And they're building their health, their performance, so that they're knocking down these things all the time, and they've achieved those things. But all of a sudden, the market hits, and their income drops. Is there a way that you think we should be more intentional about how we actually monitor our performance? Are there KPIs we should really be looking at? And what do we say about ourselves, and what is the mindset of being able to take on this challenge where potentially we have a loss in income generate for a very long time? What do we say that about ourselves during that time, being that we're working on our performance?
The reality is that we have bills to pay. I've got to put my kids through school. I've got to pay for university at some point. I've got a house. I've got a mortgage. We've got food, like cars. We have bills we need to pay. Financial realities are what they are. Many of us have significant financial goals to accomplish as well. And the way that we achieve those financial goals is through the work that we do, the professional life that we have, where we create whatever it is and we share that with the world. And hopefully by solving other people's problems, we can get compensated for that with some form of wealth. And it's been a difficult few years. And, you and I have both undergone some pretty significant career direction changes, we are doing now what we love and doing what we do in the world. And we're very hopeful that that's something that's going to enable us to put our kids through school and all those sorts of incredible things. But it's hard and it's challenging. And certainly during the pandemic here in Canada, things were very, very difficult. I'm a public speaker, and for almost 2 years, there were no live events. That was definitely a time that stung and was super challenging. I'm glad that I built this studio in my office to be able to do the virtual stuff, which, you and I are leveraging right now. So amazing things can come from that. That is super stressful though. When you're in those moments where things are not going well professionally, and maybe you're not getting compensated or the financial returns that you were hoping for, that's very, very difficult. It's really, really hard. And I recognize that and honor that. And it's super stressful. And whenever we are stressed, we tend to focus on short-term, immediate things. We lose our peripheral vision. We have a hard time seeing and navigating where we need to go. So it is in those moments when it's the most important to give yourself the time, space, and energy to think differently, to contemplate other options, to expand your horizons, to learn something new. And then also concurrently, as you're expanding your horizons, as you're thinking peripherally, to double down on the process that works. One of the greatest ideas I got from Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, was the idea of not journaling the negatives in life, the hard times, but journaling when things are going awesome, so that you have a clear record of the things that worked for you when you were doing the best you've ever done. That way you can go back and look at what time were you getting up? What was your mindset like? Who were you hanging out with? What were the processes that you were running in order to get the results that you were getting at that particular time? So when we focus on the process of what we do, what we need to be doing in order to be successful, then we give ourselves permission to take the time to think peripherally, to open up our thinking, to think about how we think and navigate forwards in difficult times. That's the magic. But it requires us not to be busy. Because if you're just simply checking the news, if you're going through your email, if you're doing busy work that doesn't move the needle, you're not going to get out of the challenge. You need to be strategic. You need to plan. You need to double down on your strengths. You need to leverage the work that you do so that you can share your strengths with the world. That's the magic. That's the very, very difficult piece of it's probably the hardest point in our lives, when there's infinite pressure as well that we put on ourselves to provide. So for our loved ones. So yeah, no, it's a very, very hard thing, but that's one of the things that that's the approach generally that I've been helping people walk through in those very, very difficult times.
And thank you for sharing that. And it's really within those times that we use the analogy of the butterfly, when it's in the, I forgot what it was called. It's not a cocoon. It's a cocoon when it's a moth, but a butterfly, it's well, anyway,
It's a
the but
metamorphosis, right? That they go through. You're in
yeah,
this
well,
massive transition.
cocoon, but it's not a cocoon. There's another
Yeah.
scientific name that's blanking my mind. But in that process, they're actually digesting that version of them. There's parts of them that they're actually killing off, and it's painful. And really, during those times, I think whenever we've reached any challenge, we've always seen post-mortem how that challenge has forced us to grow differently, think differently, become more resilient. And, Nelson Mandela said that after coming out of 27 years in prison, he didn't survive it, but he was really preparing when he was in there. And it's that knowing that, yes, there's something that's happening in the outside world and it's unknown when I'll be free, but I am really preparing myself to really deliver what I'm here to deliver. And
Yeah.
so,
And isn't it interesting that the moment that he was released, the first thing he did was forgive his captors?
yeah,
Like that's also the magic, right? That's the no negativity. That's the focusing on the positive, focusing on moving forwards, not allowing yourself to get caught up in the fear, the anger, all of those things that are so prevalent in our world right now. And over and over and over again, when you look at people like Nelson Mandela that have overcome unbelievable challenges, there is that element of positivity. There is that element of growth. There is that element of forgiveness, of love. And that's the spark that we need in our lives. It's hard to find sometimes, but that's where I think a lot of the growth lies.
that's so beautiful. And yes, he did forgive. And in fact, I think, his captor, he made that person, forget his name, into his cabinet when he became president. Um, Dr. Wells, what a wealth of information. And I appreciate you the for the true dedication and passion to your work, recognizing someone who has gone through the challenges, but really living what they're preaching. Now, before I ask my last question, where do people find you and more of your work?
Everyone can check it out. Everything is at drgregwells.com. That's all my social media there. I'm pretty active on Instagram and LinkedIn. We post videos and articles there. My books are at that website as well. So if people want to check that out, and feel free to message me and just say you heard me on this podcast, and I'll try to answer you myself and get to all of your questions. Be honored to connect.
Beautiful. Very interested in this last question. With everything that you've done in physiology and studying Olympians and training with them, but in your own life, what has been your best medicine?
It's been it's interesting. I'm stumbling over this, and the answer is my kids and my family and Judith. But it's been hard to get there. Like
Yeah,
in order to get to the point where I'm able to be a great dad, and I'm still working on it, and I'm able to be a great partner to Judith. And again, I'm very much working on that too. And I'm a lot luckier than she is, let's face it. Um, there's been a lot of work that has gone into being able to be the person that I would like to be for my kids and for Judith. And so that's the work, right? At the end of the day, if my kids and my wife are healthy, happy, and we're all thriving together, everything else is easy. So that's the grand focus, and that's probably where the answer to that question lies.
So beautiful, so vulnerable. And as a man who's also doing the work, I completely empathize with that answer. So, Dr. Wells, appreciate your wisdom, your time, and thanks for being with us on the Thrive State podcast.
Thanks, buddy. It was super great to chat to you, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breathwork, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential, so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.